He stepped into the room, and at once silence wrapped around him like a heavy blanket. The door behind him closed with a dull, metallic echo, and suddenly the air felt colder. It was an empty room, or at least that was what it looked like at first. The floor was covered with dust and small broken pieces of metal. Strange wires crawled across the ground like the veins of a dead machine. The ceiling was high, and pale light came through tall triangular windows, casting long shadows that moved like ghosts on the walls. The man froze. There was something strange about this place. It was empty but not peaceful. The silence was too deep, too unnatural, as if the room itself was holding its breath. He looked around carefully. The walls were marked with scratches, burned lines, and symbols that made no sense. Some looked almost like letters, but not from any language he knew. They glowed faintly, as if the walls still remembered energy that once flowed through them. His boots made soft, dull sounds as he walked further in. Each step echoed back to him, bouncing between the cold walls louder than it should have been. The sound of his own movement made him uneasy. It felt like someone was listening. He stopped walking. The room was silent again. Only the faint hum of the old ship remained, a sound that was almost too quiet to hear. Then a feeling washed over him. It was not something he could see or touch, but he felt it deep in his chest. The sense that he was not alone. He gripped the small flashlight in his hand and pointed it into the corners of the room. Shadows leapt across the floor and walls, but there was nothing there. Empty metal. Broken machines. Nothing alive. And yet, the feeling did not leave. If anything, it grew stronger. His throat went dry. He tried to calm his breathing, but the silence made every sound of air in his lungs louder. He spoke out loud just to break the tension. "Hello?" His voice sounded strange, like it did not belong here. It was swallowed by the room, fading, too quickly. No answer. He walked forward again, shining the light across the ground. There were claw marks on the floor, sharp and deep. Something had been here, something with strength. The marks led to the far side of the room where a pile of broken glass and metal lay. He followed the trail, each step heavier than the last. The strange feeling grew, crawling up his spine. He could almost hear something, like soft breathing, but it was so faint he wondered if his mind was playing tricks. When he reached the far corner, his light caught something pale. Not metal, not dust, something soft. He stopped. His heart pounded in his chest. The pale shape moved. It was slight, only a twitch, but it was real. Something, or someone, was there. He raised the flashlight higher, and then he saw her. At first he thought it was a trick of the light. A figure curled tightly against the wall, knees to chest, long hair spilling like silver across the floor. Her skin was pale, almost glowing in the dim light. She was breathing, slow, fragile, but steady. A girl, an alien girl. His mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. She looked human, but not fully. Her hair was too bright, her features too perfect, her presence too strange. And she had nothing. No clothes, no weapons, no protection, nothing at all. For a long moment he did not move. He only stared. And she, though her eyes were closed, seemed to know he was there. The silence grew heavier. He could hear his own heart in his ears. The girl shifted, and one hand rose slowly, almost trembling. Her long fingers brushed against the cold floor, leaving faint marks in the dust. Then, her eyes opened. He froze. They were not normal eyes. They glowed faintly. A blue light, deep and endless like the stars outside the ship. And when she looked at him, it felt as if she was not just seeing him, she was inside his mind. The man could not move. Her eyes held him in place. Blue light shimmered in them, deep and endless, like two pieces of the night sky had been carved and set into her face. For a moment the world around him felt far away. The silence of the room, the cold of the floor, even the faint hum of the old ship seemed to vanish. It was only her gaze, sharp yet fragile, powerful yet broken. She blinked slowly, and the spell broke. The man let out a breath he had been holding, without knowing it. His hand tightened around the flashlight. He had seen many things in his life. Machines that could think, worlds burning in silence, men who turned into monsters. But never this. She was real, alive. But what was she? The girl moved her hand again, brushing away dust, almost as if she was trying to remind herself that the ground beneath her was solid. Her fingers were long, delicate, but strong. Her hair fell around her like a curtain of silver light, touching the floor in tangled rivers. She did not speak, not a word. But she did not need to. Her presence alone filled the room with a strange energy. The man swallowed hard. His first thought was simple. Is she dangerous? But another thought quickly followed. Is she afraid? He took a step closer. Her eyes followed him without moving her head, tracking every motion, every sound. He felt his heart race again, each beat echoing in his chest. Who are you? He whispered. His voice cracked in the silence. She tilted her head slightly, like she was trying to understand the question. Then slowly she raised her hand, not to attack, not to defend, but to reach toward him. He froze again. The distance between them was small, but it felt like a gulf wider than any galaxy. Her hand trembled in the air, waiting, not demanding, not threatening, only waiting. Something inside him shifted. He lowered the flashlight, letting the dim window light fall on her face instead. In that moment he realized she was not a monster. She was lost. But before he could move, something happened. Her eyes grew brighter. The blue glow expanded, and he felt something impossible. A rush of images flooded his mind. Not words, not sounds, but visions. A burning sky. A city of towers collapsing into fire, ships falling from the heavens like broken birds, shadows with red eyes, hunting, destroying, devouring. He staggered back, clutching his head. The visions were not his own. They were hers. She was showing him. She was inside his mind. The girl's face remained calm, though her breathing grew heavy. Her eyes shimmered like liquid stars and more visions struck him. A chamber filled with glowing tubes, children floating inside them, machines watching with cold, empty eyes. And then, emptiness. Silence. Alone. The connection snapped. The visions stopped. The man gasped for air, falling to one knee. When he looked up, she was still watching him. This time her expression was clear. Not anger, not power, but pain. Deep pain. And loneliness. He finally understood. She had nothing. No family. No home. No future. The last of her kind. The man stood again, slower this time, careful not to startle her. His legs shook, but he kept his voice steady. I saw it, he whispered. I saw what happened to you. For the first time, her expression changed. Her lips parted slightly as if she might speak, but no words came. Instead, a single tear slipped down her pale cheek, shining faintly in the dim light. The man's chest tightened. He wanted to step back to keep his distance, but something inside him pushed forward. She was not a weapon. She was not an enemy. She was just alone. And in that moment, he realized he could not turn away. He reached out his hand, not with fear, not with doubt, but with something else. Trust. The girl looked at his hand for a long time. The silence stretched. It felt like hours. Then, slowly, carefully, she lifted her own hand and placed it against his. Her skin was cool, softer than he expected, almost unreal. The blue glow in her eyes dimmed, becoming calm, steady, and though no words were spoken, he heard her clearly inside his mind. Help me. The man's heart pounded. The request was simple, but it carried the weight of entire worlds. He nodded, once firmly. In that empty room between dust and shadows, a bond was formed, fragile, uncertain, but real. And neither of them knew that outside those walls, something else was already waking, watching, waiting. The man stood frozen, her cool hand resting lightly against his. It was a fragile touch, but it carried a weight far greater than he could understand. Her eyes glowed softly, no longer sharp or blinding, but calm and deep, like two stars that had found a moment of peace. Then it began, not with sound, not with words, but with feeling. At first it was like a quiet whisper brushing against his mind, a presence, not his own thoughts, not his own memories, but something foreign and delicate. Like another soul had slipped into the edges of his consciousness. He stiffened, his heart pounding. The instinct to pull away screamed inside him, but he didn't. Something about her touch told him she wasn't forcing this. She was asking. He let out a shaky breath and allowed it, and suddenly, the flood began. Visions. Clearer this time. More real than before. He saw her world, a sky of pale silver clouds, stretched over shining crystal towers. Children laughed and ran through streets of glowing stone. The air was alive with strange, beautiful music that came not from instruments but from the buildings themselves. It was a place of peace, a place of light. And then, fire. The silver sky turned black. Ships like daggers rained down from above. The towers broke, shattering into dust. The music stopped, replaced by screams. The children vanished into shadows. The man staggered, clutching his head, but the vision did not let him go. He saw her people running, fighting, falling. Machines, with red eyes, burned everything in their path. The invaders had no mercy, no face, only destruction, and through it all, her. The girl stood in a chamber surrounded by glowing machines. She was smaller then, younger, though her face was still the same. She was not playing, not laughing. She was chosen. He saw her placed inside a pod of light, wires running into her skin. He felt her pain as if it were his own, the shock of energy, the tearing of innocence. She was made into something else, not just a girl, a weapon, an experiment meant to save her people, or destroy them. His breathing grew rough, his knees shaking. The visions pressed harder, like waves crashing over him. And then it all broke apart. Darkness. Silence. She was alone. Alone in a room, curled into herself, waiting for anyone. The vision ended. The man gasped, falling back, his chest heaving. His hand slipped from hers, and the connection snapped. The room returned, the dust, the broken machines, the faint cold light. But now everything was different. He knew her story, at least part of it, and it was enough. He looked at her again. She was trembling slightly, her long hair clinging to her shoulders, her breathing unsteady. Sharing her memories had cost her strength. But still, she watched, him, waiting. Her glowing eyes were softer now, almost pleading. He swallowed hard, his voice rough. You showed me. You let me see. She tilted her head. No words left her lips, but he felt a faint ripple inside his mind. Gentle, curious, hopeful. He tried again, slower this time. You can hear me. In here, can't you? He tapped his temple. Her eyes brightened. The ripple in his thoughts grew warmer, clearer. Yes, the word was not spoken, but he felt it. Simple, direct, real. His stomach twisted. It was one thing to see visions, but another to hear her inside his mind. It was unnatural. It was impossible. And yet, it was happening. He forced himself to breathe. Who are you? He asked softly. For a moment, there was only silence. Then an image bloomed inside his head. A small star, glowing white, surrounded by darkness. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. That is me. Not a name, not in words, but in essence. He frowned. You're the last, aren't you? The star flickered in his mind. Sadness, heavy and sharp, spread through his chest. He realized it was not his sadness, it was hers. The girl lowered her gaze. Her hair fell across her face, hiding her expression, but the feeling inside him was clear. She was the last. Her people were gone. The man's throat tightened. He wanted to say something, anything. But no words seemed enough. What could he tell her? That he was sorry? That she deserved better? All he managed was, "You're not alone anymore." Her eyes snapped up, meeting his. The glow inside them grew, soft, but steady. The sadness did not vanish, but something new joined it. Hope. For the first time since he entered the empty room, the silence felt different. Not heavy, not dangerous, but waiting. The bond between them was no longer a fragile thread. It was stronger, a quiet bridge between two worlds. And though he could not know it yet, that bond was about to be tested, because somewhere deep in the ship, something else had heard them. And it was waking. The man's chest was still tight from the visions, but he steadied his breathing. The girl sat quietly against the wall, her silver hair falling around her, shoulders like a veil. Her glowing eyes flickered, watching him carefully. For a moment, nothing moved. It was as if the whole ship was holding its breath. He spoke softly, almost afraid his words would break the fragile peace. "What are you? What happened to you?" Her gaze did not leave him. And then, without touching him, he felt the answer press into his mind. Not pictures this time. Not quick flashes of fire and shadows, but slower, heavier memories, a laboratory. Dark walls lined with machines that pulsed with red light. Rows of glass chambers filled with pale liquid. And inside those chambers, children. Dozens of them. Each one floating, eyes closed, wires connected to their skin. The man shivered. She showed him herself, smaller, younger, locked in one of those chambers. She was not alone then. Others were beside her, her brothers, her sisters. They were born, not in homes but in machines, made, not raised. Her thoughts pressed into his. We were created. His heart sank. Not born like him, not free. They were designed, constructed for a purpose. The vision shifted again. He saw the elders of her people, their faces heavy with fear. They knew the invaders would come, and in desperation they made a choice to build protectors, soldiers, living weapons to fight the darkness. The children were those weapons, and she was one of the strongest. The man felt the memory twist into something darker. He saw fire again. But this time, the flames were not from the enemy. They came from the children themselves. Power that ripped apart walls, shattered machines, burned everything. Some of them lost control. Some destroyed more than they saved. And then the invaders struck. The memory ended with silence. She stood alone again, older now, wandering through empty ruins. Her people gone. Her brothers and sisters gone. The machine still hunting. The silence her only company. The man staggered back, pressing a hand to the wall. His stomach twisted. She wasn't just a survivor. She was a weapon, built, broken, abandoned. He stared at her. Her pale face was calm, but her eyes told the truth. They carried pain too deep to hide. "You're dangerous," he whispered. The words left his lips before he could stop them. Her head tilted and he felt a ripple in his mind. Sad, quiet. "Yes, but you didn't hurt me," he said quickly, his voice sharper now. "You showed me. You trusted me." The ripple shifted, softer now, filled with something fragile. "I do not want to be a weapon." The man's throat tightened. For the first time, he understood. She wasn't asking for power. She was asking for freedom. For the chance to be more than what she was made to be. He crouched down, lowering himself to her level. Her glowing eyes reflected in his, and he spoke with as much calm as he could find. You're not just what they made you. You're alive. That means you can choose. Her breath caught. He felt the stir of confusion, hope, and disbelief all at once. She had never been told that before. Never been given a choice. The silence stretched again, but this time, it was different. The air between them felt heavier, as if the walls of the ship themselves were listening. Then the floor shook. A faint rumble at first, then a deep groan of metal twisting somewhere far away. Dust fell from the ceiling. The man snapped his head, up, heart pounding. The girl's eyes flared bright blue and fear rippled from her mind into his. They are here. He stood at once, pulling her to her feet. Who? She didn't answer with words. She didn't need to. The walls came alive with red light. Symbols glowed, not faint now, but burning. The hum of the ship grew louder, sharp and mechanical. The guardians of the ship, the machines, were waking. The man cursed under his breath, scanning the room. He had no weapon, nothing but his hands and whatever scraps of metal lay on the floor. But the girl's hand gripped his tightly, her eyes blazing. For the first time he felt not just fear from her, but determination. She wasn't going to run. Not again. He met her gaze, breathing hard. You want to choose? Then fight with me. Her glow pulsed brighter, and in his mind came a single word. Yes. The ship shook again, louder this time. Heavy footsteps echoed in the distance, metal grinding. On metal, the guardians were coming closer. The man tightened his grip on her hand. The empty room was no longer empty. It was the beginning of war, and for the first time since her world was destroyed, the alien girl was not alone. The floor trembled beneath their feet. The sound came first, a low, grinding growl of metal twisting and waking after long years of silence. Then came the red glow, spreading across the walls like veins of fire. The man tightened his grip on the girl's hand. She stood beside him, her blue eyes glowing brighter, reflecting both fear and resolve. The guardians of the ship were no longer asleep. The silence of the empty room was gone. Now there was rhythm, heavy, steady, mechanical. Thump, thump, thump. Footsteps, marching closer. The man's heart raced. He looked around for something, anything to defend himself. On the ground lay broken rods of metal, sharp pieces of glass, shattered panels. He bent quickly, picking up a jagged pipe, its surface cold and rough. It wasn't much, but it was better than empty hands. The girl did not move. Her breathing was calm, but inside his head he felt the storm. Her thoughts, her emotions all rushing into him. Fear, hatred, memories of running, memories of losing. But this time, she was not going to run. The first sound came from the doorway. A metallic hiss, followed by sparks of red light. Something, large and heavy, stepped into the room. The man lifted the pipe, his arms tense. The girl's glow flared stronger, casting blue light against the red. And then the guardian appeared. It was tall, nearly twice the man's height, built from black iron and sharp edges. Its body moved with unnatural smoothness, joints clicking softly as gears turned. Red eyes burned in the center of its head, unblinking, cold. Behind it, more shadows moved. Not one guardian, not two. At least three, maybe more. The man's throat went dry. He had fought before, yes, but never against something like this. Never with only a pipe and a girl who was not human. The guardian stepped forward. Its feet struck, the floor with booming weight leaving dents in the metal ground. It stopped in the middle of the room and scanned them. The red eyes glowed brighter. And then its voice came, not a voice made of breath but of machines. Flat, cold, final. Target found, terminate. The man cursed under his breath. So it wasn't after him. It was after her. The girl stepped forward, pulling free from his hand. Her glow expanded, wrapping her in a faint blue aura. The air around her seemed to shimmer as if bending to her presence. She raised her hand slowly. The man felt the echo of her thoughts press into him. Do not fear. I will fight. Before he could reply, the Guardian attacked. It moved fast, far faster than its size suggested. A massive arm swung like a hammer, aiming straight for the girl. But before it could strike, blue energy flashed, the air cracked with sound, and the Guardian's arm was thrown aside as if by invisible force. It staggered back, metal screeching as it struck the wall. The man's jaw dropped. He had seen weapons, bombs, even entire ships burn under heavy fire. But this was different. She wasn't using a machine. She was the weapon. The other Guardians surged forward, their eyes blazing red. One leapt across the room, claws extended. The man shouted, raising his pipe, but the girl moved first. She lifted both hands and the air exploded with force. The Guardian slammed into the ceiling, metal crunching, before crashing down in a twisted heap. Sparks flew, red lights fading from its body. The girl staggered, her breath sharp, her glow flickering. She was powerful, yes, but not endless. Every strike took something from her. The man rushed to her side, swinging the pipe as another Guardian lunged. The metal rod smashed against its face, sparks spraying. The Guardian turned on him at once, red eyes blazing. Human interference detected. Remove. The man gritted his teeth, holding the pipe tight. I don't think so. He ducked under its swing and shoved the pipe deep into a joint in its chest. The sound of tearing metal rang out and the Guardian stumbled. It wasn't destroyed, but it was slowed. The girl raised her hand again, her eyes flaring with blue fire. Energy burst out, ripping the machine apart in a blinding flash. Pieces of metal scattered across the floor. Silence returned for a moment. Only their ragged breaths filled the air. Then, more footsteps. Heavier this time, louder. The Guardians were not finished. Dozens more were coming. The man's heart sank. There were too many. They couldn't win like this. The girl turned to him, her glow weak now, her shoulders trembling. But in her mind, her voice was steady. We must leave. If we stay, we die. He nodded quickly. Then let's go. Where? She pointed toward the far wall, where a narrow passage lay half hidden in shadow. That way. It leads out. The footsteps grew louder, shaking the floor beneath them. The red glow filled every crack in the walls, pulsing like a heartbeat. The man grabbed her hand again. Together they ran. Behind them, the Guardians roared awake, their voices filling the ship. Target locked. Pursue. Terminate. The empty room was no longer their prison. It had become their battlefield. And if they wanted to survive, they would have to escape into the darkness beyond. The hallway stretched before them, dark and narrow, lit only by the faint blue glow from the girl's body. The man pulled her forward, his boots pounding against the metal floor. Behind them, the sound of machines grew louder, an army of Guardians, their red eyes burning like fire in the shadows. Thump, thump, thump. The footsteps echoed, shaking the walls. The ship had awakened, and it would not let them go easily. The girl stumbled once, her breathing heavy. Her glow flickered like a dying flame. The man tightened his grip on her hand. Stay with me, he said through clenched teeth. She looked at him, her eyes bright with determination, and nodded once. They reached a corner and turned sharply. The passage opened into a wider corridor lined with broken pipes and shattered panels. Steam hissed from cracks in the walls, filling the air with fog. The man slowed, scanning for danger. His instincts screamed that this place was a trap, and he was right. From the fog ahead, a red light flared. Then another, and another. 3 Guardians stepped out, blocking the path. Their bodies were scarred with age but still deadly, their claws sharp and gleaming. They moved with purpose, mechanical voices echoing through the corridor. Target detected. Eliminate. The girl pulled away from him, stepping forward. Her blue glow flared, brighter now, stronger. The man felt the pulse of her mind brush against his. Stay back, I will fight. He shook his head. No, not alone. We fight together. For a brief moment, surprise flashed across her face. Her kind had always fought alone. But this time she did not argue. The first guardian lunged, claws slashing through the fog. The man swung his pipe, smashing it against the machine's arm. The strike threw sparks but barely slowed the metal beast. The girl raised her hand, and energy burst from her palm. The force slammed into the guardian's chest, throwing it backward into the wall. Metal screeched and the machine collapsed in a shower of sparks. The second guardian charged. The man ducked under its swing, jamming the pipe into its leg joint. It stumbled, falling to one knee. The girl seized the chance, sending a wave of blue light that tore the machine apart. The last one moved faster than the others, catching them off guard. It swung at the girl, its claws nearly tearing into her. The man shoved her aside, taking the blow across his arm. Pain shot through him, white hot. He gritted his teeth, refusing to fall. The pipe slipped from his hand, clattering to the ground. The guardian raised its claws for the killing strike, but before it could move, the girl screamed. Her glow erupted, flooding the corridor with blinding light. The air cracked with power, and the guardian was lifted off its feet, slammed into the ceiling and ripped apart in a storm of energy. The girl fell to her knees, trembling, her glow dimming again. The man staggered, clutching his injured arm, but forced himself to stand. He grabbed her shoulder gently. "You saved us," he said. His voice was rough, but his eyes were steady. "You're stronger than you know." She looked up at him, tears shining in her glowing eyes. Not sadness, relief. For the first time she had not fought alone, but the moment was short. The ground shook again, heavier this time. More guardians were coming. Dozens, maybe hundreds. The ship was alive, and it wanted its prisoner back. The man pulled her to her feet. "No time. We move." They ran again, deeper into the corridor. The air grew colder, darker. The walls narrowed, then opened into a massive chamber. At the center stood a broken transport pod, half buried in dust. The man's eyes widened. An escape pod. The girl stepped closer, touching its surface. Her glow spread into the pod and lights flickered weakly to life. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't safe, but it was their only chance. The footsteps grew louder, the chorus of machine voices echoing through the chamber. "Target locked. Do not escape." The man grabbed a fallen weapon from the ground, a long, rusted staff once used by the Guardians. It was heavy, but it would do. He stood at the entrance of the chamber, pipe gone, new weapon in hand. The girl turned to him, her glow faint but steady. In his mind, her voice came, strong and clear this time. "We fight together. Until the end." He smiled grimly. Until the end. The first Guardians stormed into the chamber. Red light clashed with blue as the battle began again. The man swung the staff with all his strength, sparks flying with every strike. The girl unleashed her power, energy crashing into the machines like a storm. Side by side, human and alien, they fought not just for survival, but for something greater, freedom. And, though the odds were against them, neither would let go. Not now, not ever, because for the first time they were no longer alone. The chamber shook with the force of battle. Blue light from the girl's power lit the walls, clashing against the red glow of the Guardians. The man swung his staff again and again, sparks bursting with each strike, while the alien girl sent waves of energy into the machines. But no matter how many they destroyed, more poured in. The Guardians filled the chamber, their cold voices echoing through the air. "Target will not escape. Terminate. Terminate." The man's chest heaved with exhaustion. His injured arm throbbed, blood dripping down his sleeve. The staff grew, heavy, but he refused to drop it. Beside him, the girl trembled, her glow flickering weaker with every blast of power. Her face was pale, her breaths short, but her eyes still burned with determination. Then he saw it, the escape pod in the center of the chamber. Its lights were faint but alive. Their only chance. "Go," he shouted to her. "Get inside. I'll hold them off." She turned sharply, her glowing eyes locking onto his. Her voice pressed into his mind, fierce and desperate. "No, not without you." He almost smiled, even as another Guardian lunged at him. He blocked the blow, sparks flying, and shoved the machine back. "We don't have time to argue," he roared. "Move!" But she stood her ground. Her blue glow flared again, brighter than before. She stepped closer to him, placing her trembling. Hand on his arm, "We fight together, we escape together." He stared at her, heart pounding. Even in this moment, surrounded by death, she had chosen. Not to be a weapon, not to be a prisoner, but to stand beside him. The Guardians advanced, their red eyes blazing. The chamber shook with their weight. The air filled with smoke, sparks, and the hiss of broken machines. The man raised his staff one more time, gripping it with both hands. The girl lifted her arms, her glow burning brighter than ever before. Together, they struck. The chamber exploded with light, blue and red crashing. Together, the machines staggered, some collapsing in sparks, others thrown back by the force. The floor cracked, metal splitting beneath the impact. But the girl screamed, falling to her knees. Her glow dimmed sharply, almost fading. She had poured everything into that blast. The man dropped beside her, pulling her up. Her body was light, too light, trembling in his arms. Her eyes flickered, weak, but still glowing faintly. "No," he whispered fiercely. "Stay with me. We're not done yet." Her voice brushed his mind, faint as a dying flame. "I am tired." He shook his head. "No, you can't stop now. You're stronger than this. You're stronger than me." The Guardians were already rising. Again, their red eyes cutting through the smoke. They would not stop, not until she was gone. The man clenched his teeth, dragging her toward the escape pod. Every step felt heavier, the Guardians closing in behind them. But he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. He reached the pod and slammed his hand against the controls. The door hissed open, releasing a cloud of cold air. Inside, the pod was small, barely large enough for two. But it would fly. It had to. He pushed her inside gently, but she grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. Her eyes met his, glowing faintly, filled with fear and hope all at once. "Come with me." He hesitated only for a second. Then he climbed in beside her, pulling, the hatch shut. The Guardians stormed forward, their claws slashing at the pod, sparks flying across its surface. The man slammed the launch button. The pod shook violently, the engines groaning to life. "Come on," he muttered. "Don't fail. Us now." The floor beneath them opened and the pod dropped into darkness. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then the engines roared and the pod shot forward, breaking free from the ship. The Guardians' voices faded behind them, swallowed by the void. The pod spun through space, leaving the burning wreck of the alien ship behind. Inside, the man slumped, against the wall, exhausted. The girl leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. Her glow was faint but steady. For the first time, there was no sound of machines, no red lights, no voices calling for her death. Only silence. Real silence. She lifted her eyes to his, and in his mind came a single word. Safe. He exhaled slowly, his body finally relaxing. He looked at her, this alien girl who had nothing, who had lost everything, and yet still stood by his side. She wasn't just a weapon, she wasn't just a survivor, she was hope. And though neither of them knew where the pod would take them, one truth was clear. They had begun something new. A human and an alien. Two broken lives, bound together not by fate, but by choice. The man closed his eyes, whispering into the quiet, "You're not alone anymore." The girl's glow brightened faintly, her lips curling into the smallest, softest smile. And in that small escape pod, drifting into the unknown stars, a new beginning was born.